Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. We're diving into the Action Bible, which is a really unique Bible version that actually just crossed the 3 million mark in terms of sales. Brock, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Billy. I'm excited to talk about the Action Bible. It's probably my favorite thing.
Well, it's really unique. So for those who don't know, let's just start here because this is not your typical Bible in terms of how it is presented. So tell us a little bit about the Action Bible.
Yeah, what strikes people that read the Action Bible is just the beautiful, full, action-packed illustrations that really bring the story to life. And we like to think about the Action Bible bringing the Bible to life in a different way. For this generation specifically, who is involved with graphic novels, this Bible appeals to them because they like that kind of, I can see the images of the story moving. And there's a narrative, like a paraphrase narrative of the Bible story that's easy to understand and sounds like a conversation. So it's a very inviting Bible. I think that's what stands out about the Action Bible for a lot of people. But it's got 238 plus stories from the Bible, and it's over 830 pages long. So it's a nice, big Bible.
That is a lot of pages, and there's a lot to unpack there. But I want to kind of go back to the beginning because I believe it was 2010 when the Action Bible was first published. Where did the idea come from? What was the motivation behind launching this book initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, 2010 is when it launched. And actually, if you look in our history, David C. Cook, we started out as a company doing illustrated forms of the Bible, all the way back to something called comic pics. From the very early days of David C. Cook, he would send these tracts with illustrations and graphics to the people who he was speaking to or evangelizing with images from the Bible. And so that's kind of in our DNA. And we launched a book called The Picture Bible, actually, in the 1970s. And that was the catalyst for the Action Bible. So fast forward, 30 or so years, and you get to 2010, and it's time to refresh that. What does the Picture Bible, or what does an illustrated Bible look like for the next generation? And that's really kind of the catalyst that got the Action Bible going at that time.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because obviously culture changes. The truth never does change. And you have this dynamic right now where culture has become much more secular. Young people, in fact, there was just a statistic out there that in the first 10 months of 2023, there was a 22% increase in the number of people buying Bibles from the year before. And so even though there's all this cultural pandemonium going on, young people seem to be very interested, right? They're intrigued. And here you are with the Action Bible presenting things. I mean, there's a whole book series out there. What is it? Cat Dog and all these other, graphic sort of novels that are out there and these comic books. Here you have the Bible presented in this innovative way. In what ways do you think the Action Bible, and I'm sure you've seen this in practice, is helping those young people to discover the truth?
Yeah, well, just so you know, I'm a dad of 4 kids, 15, 13, 11, and 9. So I'm living with Gen Alpha, and that's the next generation, right? These kids, we talk about Dogman and Investigators and Captain Underpants, all these illustrated graphic stories. The one thing I'll say before we get even more to answering your question is they don't have hope. Those stories don't provide the hope and the beautiful story that God does in the redemptive story, right, of the plan of bringing Jesus and our salvation. And so the Bible does that. So if I put that piece right here, which is really, really important, Gen Alpha, unlike any other generation, right, they went through something called the pandemic. And I know we try to put that in our rear mirror, but that truly affected this generation in ways that our generations won't ever experience. It isolated them. It took away a whole year and a half of that community building at an early important age where they started to develop relationships and friends and community. And so when you think about that, there's this video that came out on Instagram many years ago about this little boy, and he's in the kitchen making a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and he's singing to himself an old song called "All by Myself." And this moment and this picture and this imagery of this little boy by himself making his lunch for school, but school's at home, by himself, relating to that song. There's this desperation, this hopelessness that generation had that maybe yours and mine didn't feel. And so I think as we turn that corner, right, and kids get back in community and school, something like the Bible, something like the Action Bible that has these graphics that the kids want to and are drawn to, telling this narrative of this beautiful story of redemption, of hope, of stories and the characters in the Bible that are just like them. People who struggled with things, who had fear, but overcame it with courage because they were empowered by God. These fantastic stories that kids are connecting to them. They're like, I see myself in that story and I can be that. And I think that's why we've seen this turn of corner is this generation is looking and searching and seeking that. So I hope that answers the question, Billy.
No, it does. And I think it's amazing too. I mean, the way that you've put this together and the way that this, obviously it's resonated. You've sold over 3 million copies. It's really impressive. And, the reason that that number is important is that means 3 million young people and maybe even adults, obviously, are able to engage in the Bible in a different way. So often when we talk about different Bible versions and editions, we're talking about, NLT, we're talking about ESV, NIV, but this is a totally different way of seeing the scriptures play out through image and through dialogue. What went into this? I'm sure it was a lot of work to make sure that accuracy was kept, the important pieces were kept, and
Yeah.
that it was able to be conveyed in this form. So talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I mean, the key to the Action Bible is, it is a paraphrase, right? It's not an exact translation, and it doesn't contain the entire Bible. Like I mentioned, 230 stories. So first it was, what is what is the full story of the Bible? What does that look like to try to tell from beginning to end in the best way we can? I mean, we're already at 838 pages, right? This is a big book. So you have to find a way. The Bible's important as a whole, but how do we tell those key stories in a narrative form that is true to God's word, that can connect to these kids? As I said, we've been doing this for a while, and the Picture Bible was kind of the first book back in the 1970s. Well, that narrative hasn't changed because it can't change, because the Bible is the Bible. It is true. And so I think that's what's at the core of the genesis of creating the Action Bible, was remaining true to the stories and how they are told. We see that in a lot of other ways that the Bible is being told in different forms, from video and video games now. The key is to keep true to what God's word is. And so that foundation, and adding a narrative and a language easy to understand to connect to the kids, that's what draws them in. So I'd say that's the first part. Is we were very careful to remain very true to what the Bible actually says in a translation as a paraphrase. That said, the imagery is the next part, is showing that story. What did that look like? Being authentic to the Bible times, making sure there was research done on what did these cities look like? What did the people wear? And so there's a lot of careful effort put into not only the language and the words, but also the imagery that took those pages and basically lifted them and brought them to life, I would say. So.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And maybe there are some stories you could share, or even just the impact, because I think when you have a product like this that's been on the market now and obviously there's a deeper history to your organization, but for 14 years where you've been able to see impact, what are some of the ways that you've seen that impact? How have young people, adults been affected by the Action Bible?
Yeah, well, what I would like to I'd even like to take it bigger for you is that, so 14 years, right? The Action Bible has been translated into 108 languages around the world. So we talk about 3 million in the United States. The number globally is much larger. In the last 40 years alone, we've sold 1.1 million Action Bibles around the world. So that's not included in that 3 million you and I talked about. And so the impact, domestically, it's huge, right? We know, especially we've seen this curve. That's why we're celebrating 3 million right now. We hit number 24 on Amazon. It is still like 13 weeks running right now, the number one Bible on Amazon. Now, not number one illustrated Bible, not number one graphic Bible, number one Bible above all study Bibles. It's the number one Bible. So we've hit this growth curve, which, to your point earlier, Billy, what you said was beautiful. We're connecting to this generation in some form. This Bible is for them, right? This connects to them. It's what they're looking for, what they're wanting, because it's similar to the content out there that they also love: Catman, Dogman, whatever those might be.
Yeah, I might have had it wrong. I think I said Catman. I don't even. My kids have them. I don't know. They love. But I think what you're saying though, that connection point is so important, because we've been lamenting what is happening to young people for so long now, and to have a tool like this, right, that people are finding and discovering, it makes the whole difference, not only in, and you can speak to this too, but I want to say this because I think it's important, not only building the faith of young Christians who are being brought up that way, but being discovered as an evangelistic tool by other young people not in the church.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have I think I held up the Action Bible earlier because, it's a beautiful book, but we have this tract called The Story of Jesus. And this thing, I mean, it's in the 80s millions of copies, like tens of millions, I shouldn't say 80s, but tens of millions of copies around the world distributed. And this is just a story of Jesus. This is bringing people in. This is meant to be an evangelism tool, because that's our goal. The goal of these Cook is to serve the church and equip them with discipleship resources. The Action Bible is a significant tool, and it's for parents, it's for churches, it's for all to get that to a young person and say, hey, the Bible is pretty interesting. There's some really awesome stories in here. And you know what? You can connect with these people that live these lives, and you can probably find influence that will impact your life going forward. And so the impact, we hear from kids all the time. We get stories written into us. We get international stories. I've got a great one. If I can just read it to you real quick here for a second. It's very simple. It's from a kiddo in Nairobi, Kenya, and he's 6 years old. I like this Bible because it has very nice pictures and stories. I like it because it is from God and teaches us good manners and has taught me to forgive others. It has taught me to love other people. My favorite story is Jesus is baptized. And this is a 6-year-old from Nairobi, Kenya. And we have hundreds, thousands of stories like that from around the world and here in the US. That's a 6-year-old boy looking at a Bible that he can understand, because maybe he can't read the text yet, right? Maybe his mom and dad are reading the text, but those images come to life in a way that he can understand. He can see Jesus being baptized on those pages in a graphic form and connect with the interest of that story. And I think that's what gets me as a dad, as someone working on the Action Bible, as a Christian who wants the young next generation to rise up and just be excited about God's word. That's what gets me really excited. So,
well, it is exciting. It's incredible to hear that. If people want to grab copies, obviously they can go to Amazon, they can go wherever books are sold. Yeah. But if you want to point them to your organization, is there a particular website you want to send them to, a particular place?
Yeah, sure. Theactionbible.com. So theactionbible.com is simple enough, and you can connect to anything there in the Action Bible and see the full portfolio. Because if I can leave you with something, Billy, is the Action Bible is a paraphrase, as mentioned. Well, we have study Bibles that you support. We always tell kids, hey, your next step is you graduate to one of these study Bibles, right? You get a study Bible and you go into God's word as a whole. And the stories that aren't in the Action Bible, they're in here. And so it is about creating a product line that kids can connect with, but get the full depth they need. And I mentioned Gen Alpha. The Action Bible came out during Gen Z. And so we have adults writing to us all the time, like, I just got this for my child. I'm not old enough to have kids. I got this for them. And I can picture a bunch of, 30-year-old guys who grew up in the Action Bible sitting around doing a Bible study with their Action Bibles on their lap, right? I mean, this Bible has the opportunity to connect with people and connect with new believers in a way that sometimes the other Bible can be hard and challenging, right? The full text Bible can be hard to do. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, really an incredible way to engage at a time when culture needs it most. I appreciate you joining us and breaking it all down today. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Billy. I appreciate it so much.